The Period Place Podcast.
Shark Week. Riding the cotton pony. Yeah. I have salsa in my taco. Yes.
Rag Week. Oh,
Rag Week.
Oh, that's bloody hell.
Bloody hell. Bloody hell, Harry.
The Period Place Podcast.
Thanks to our mates at Kotex.
We're back.
We're back.
I may be a little dusty today, I'm not going to lie, but you know what? Hardest worker in the room always turns up. I had a tank, I had a coffee. We're here.
We're here.
We're here, and I'm so happy. I'm just going to start this off. I don't know if you can hear my voice is a little croaky, and I was a little bit worried because I obviously doing a podcast the next day, and you kind of need your voice, right?
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I actually completely lost it last night. So
what were you doing?
did a wee shot of olive oil before I went to bed. I was frantically Googling while I was a little bit tipsy. But yeah, I've woken up, I've got my voice here. And also a funny story, as you do when you come home from a night out, you get your Maccas.
Get the Mackie D's.
Yeah, and the Uber ride home. I woke up, I was literally holding, I must have fallen asleep like mid-jamming some Macca's fries. I was literally holding the Macca's cup, and I looked down and there was literally McDonald's fries all through my entire bed.
Well, at least you were still holding the cup.
I must have just fallen asleep so happy.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh,
I'm
this
here.
is
I'm
it.
in
It's just hit
salty,
the spot.
potatoey carb, happiness. Everything is good.
It was one of those moments I woke up, I was like,
After your shot of olive oil.
yeah, this ain't it, Chief. I need to sort my life out.
Well, you're here to sort your life out today, babes.
So how's your week been?
Tough week.
Yeah.
Week. Busy. Hate the word busy, but I don't know how else to describe working 70 plus hours. Up and down the country, on flights with face masks and driving around Northland, which was beautiful but just hectic.
So were you doing work for the Period Place this
Yes,
week?
I was out on the road meeting community groups that we are supporting up there. Having some real tough conversations with people about the people that they are supporting out in communities. You know, you think of 15-year-old young mothers who don't have money for a car seat, don't have money for their baby's nappies, let alone having money for their own period products. So now what bringing our period products and our support up north is going to do for them.
So that's like obviously where you guys are at now and stuff that you're doing at the moment. But while we're here, do you want to just give like a little rundown on what the Period Place?
Seems like a good time.
Yeah, it seems like, how convenient. I know we've gotten to the spot. Give us a rundown on what you do, maybe just like on a day-to-day basis and what you've been like striving toward the last few years with the Period Place.
So what I genuinely love about the Period Place is that every day is bloody different. And I get excited. Yeah, girl. I get excited by that because I get bored with monotony. 3 years ago on the 27th of October, so coming up in a couple of weeks, it'll be 3 years since we've been around. And our idea at the beginning, we didn't know what we wanted to do, but we knew we wanted to break down stigma in communities and within people themselves. We wanted to get more people accessing period education, and we wanted to get more people accessing period products. We've done public events. We've held a national period hui. We've done different programs and out in communities. We've done Give a Little campaigns, and everything we've done for 3 years, we've been learning and learning and learning, and we're still supporting city missions. We're still supporting Mooma, who we've been working with for a long time, Manukau Urban Māori Authority in South Auckland. We're now working with the ASA Foundation, which are a bunch of legends, just going out there and empowering people who already exist. Community groups, they've done the hard mahi for years. They know what their communities and their people need. So going to them, upskilling them, and then they can go out and do the work rather than having to have like 100 period places around the country.
Yeah. Wait, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You're amazing.
Yeah.
Ka pato mahi.
Oh,
that's so cool. And I love that, this podcast can be like a space for that. You know, we're contributing in some way to help with that, removing the stigma and what the Period Place is all about.
And education.
Yeah, and education. And so today on the episode, education, that's the best way to explain it. And this is a really interesting topic we're going to delve into. It's periods and gender. And we will just start it off with a blanket statement. It's people with periods. Yeah. We don't say girls with periods, women with periods. We say people with periods because not everyone who has a period identifies as she, her. Yeah. And that is something I have learnt just recently. Yeah. And it's, it's breaking down those norms, and I obviously identify as a cisgender person, and I But I think that this episode, where we talk about this whole gender thing, is going to serve a really good. It's going to be a really good starting point for someone like me,
Yeah, it's
who
a
has
great
no
platform.
idea about this
Yep.
conversation, and obviously like identifies as I was born, and that's totally cool.
That's
And
cool.
totally
That's
fine.
just you, yeah. But it's
so
also a really awesome tool for people who are non-binary, for people who are trans, to say, hey, that's me. That's me in that podcast. I exist.
Yeah, I love that.
You know, we want to make sure that everybody who gets a period can be part of this storytelling, can be part of this experience that we're having, where we're all on this journey together and we're all learning more. And we're not always going to get it right, but we're trying to be more involved. We're not trying to be inclusive because it's the thing to do. We're not trying to tick a box. We're trying to be inclusive because there's so many amazing, cool stories out there, and we want to hear them all. We want to hear it.
I like how you said that. It's not just we're not just like trying to be inclusive to be, I don't know, trendy or whatever, right?
Yeah.
We want to be inclusive, but also serve as like, you're finding out something you would never maybe come across in your whole life. Not everyone has a friend that identifies as non-binary or
Yep.
has a friend that is transgender.
Yep.
I have a non-binary friend, but that's as far as it goes for me.
Yep.
And so, that the education is limited, and unless you come across it, you're never going to know. So this is a space where we're going to run it straight.
I am pumped today. So Aych McArdle has been a friend of mine and Sarah, my co-founders, for about 8 years now, and Aych is just a bloody legend. Aych has been really big and involved in the advocacy space, not just for non-binary people and for trans rights, just in general, that humans deserve human rights, and we think that everything that they do is bloody amazing. And then Lee Brown, who we had the pleasure of meeting last year for the first time, who spoke at the National Period Hui that we held, and spoke about their experiences as a trans man having periods. And so, Lee's come on today to have a yarn to further that conversation, and I'm really excited that both of them just jumped straight in. We're like, yeah, let's go, let's do this.
Let's do it. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Okay, here we go.
Drum
Episode 2. Drum roll. Periods and gender.
Hey, it's Danica here. Just before we start the podcast, You by Kotex believes a period should never hold you back, which is why, as well as keeping you covered and stress-free during your period, they're pumped to support us in smashing stigma and starting positive conversations to support people with periods. They also love the Period Place podcast and want you to know that you can catch replays along with more info on them and their products at You by Kotex, AUNZ, on Facebook, Instagram, or on their website. Thanks for the support, team. All right, back to the podcast.
I want to introduce a very special guest we have with us today, Lee Brown. And just to run it straight and get straight into it, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are and what you're about and where you've come from?
Awesome. Thank you, Tegan. My name's Lee Brown. I'm 24 years old. I'm a transgender man. I use he, him pronouns, and I've been an intern with RainbowYOUTH for about a year now. I've recently stopped doing it because I got a job, but yeah, so it's
Hashtag monies.
yeah, hashtag money.
Got to get that shmoney.
But yeah, that's pretty much me.
Awesome. So you are a trans man, but you identify as non-binary.
Yeah.
Would you be able to explain that a little bit? I don't want to sound ignorant, but just for anyone that might be wondering if you're non-binary but a trans man, like what does that kind of mean?
Yeah. So it just kind of means like because, gender and sexuality and, it's all kind of a bit of a spectrum. And like some people, even though, I have transitioned to male and masculine and that's how I want to be seen socially, but there's like a bit of a distance between how you want to present yourself and how you identify. And for me, I don't particularly identify 100% masculine, male, men's clothing, all this, blah, blah, blah. And, but it's socially, I'm fine with just like, oh yeah, that's a dude, that's a guy.
Okay.
That's the slot in society that I want to fill, and I'm pretty chill with it, yeah.
Okay, I like that. So do you get a period?
No, not at the moment. I stopped getting periods about a year ago because I started testosterone, and that slowly stopped it over time. And so I'm very thankful that I don't have to have them anymore, because before that I was like actually taking medication to stop having periods because they were so severe, it was messing up my health.
So you've only stopped having a period only a year ago, but how long ago did you transition?
I'm still in the process of transitioning. Like it is kind of like a big, vague, blob-shaped experience. So for me, like I'm on the list for top surgery, and then I think once I have that, I'll probably be like, oh yeah, I've finished transitioning. But it's kind of like I'm going through my second puberty at the moment, so it's
my gosh,
very weird. Everything's up in the air. But yeah, that
You
started.
poor thing.
Thank you. about a year and a half ago is when that started, and I'm still going through it.
So what was that like, knowing that you wanted to transition to become a man, but then still having a period? Was that something that you just wanted to get rid of straight away because that is so heavily associated with being a female? Is that something you were just like, that's the one thing I need to get rid of before I become a man? Or is it something you've just always accepted with your body?
For me, I personally, because everyone's kind of got a different view about it, but me personally, I always saw it in a very practical sort of thing. Like, this is just sort of the meat sack I have to drive to get through life.
Yeah.
And for me personally, it was just a practical thing, and I do just hate them.
Yeah.
Personally, I hate experiencing them. I know, some people with periods, they feel a bit empowered when it comes to it, and, they can really view it with positivity. And personally, I've never been able to do that. But yeah, definitely, like, especially at a young age, like, I was the first person in my class to get my period, and it's always been so wrapped up in femininity, and I was so stressed and ashamed by it constantly. And so when I got to the point when I was like, wait, I don't have to have it anymore, I was so relieved.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the thing, is when I think of periods, even for me, and like I like how you're saying it, it's like a lot of women are kind of like, yeah, I'm so empowered by this because like this is what the female body does. But like everything about a period, when it comes to when you see like an ad about a tampon, it's like some woman in this white dress and she's dancing around like, I'm so feminine and beautiful when I bleed for a week every month, and stuff like that. So I can imagine that would be like a really troubling sort of thing to associate yourself with if you didn't identify with that. And all the pretty flowers on the packaging and like all that kind of stuff. And the section it even is just in the supermarket, or even having to talk to your nurse about it, but it only being a female nurse. It's not like a conversation we all have. I imagine that would be really like troubling. Yeah.
Even as a, I'm cisgendered, I identify fully as a woman, and I've gone through a journey with my periods, but I can't bloody stand them most of the time. And
it's off-putting, eh?
Yeah, it's
really
so uncomfortable, and I've got polycystic ovary syndrome, and it's painful, and it's chunky, and it's clotty, and it's heavy, and it's sore, and I get massive pain up my back and pain or cramps for, ages beforehand, and it's frustrating, and I don't feel like the most beautiful version of myself in a white dress riding bareback on a horse with blue liquid coming out of me,
Exactly,
there's no one way to have a period. But the way that it's marketed to us is definitely not it for anybody that I've ever met.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. I even, just personally, and like I'm a proud female woman, and I've never had any of those kind of like questions for me personally, but like even for me, when I'm buying like I don't even like saying sanitary products. When I'm buying period products, I'm getting the black packaging, the plain packaging, because I don't like the frilliness of it all. The pinks and everything. Yeah. I was always a bit of a tomboy growing up. I mean, I'm wearing bright pink today, but in a cool way. I was always wearing like sneakers and camo and all that kind of stuff. And when I was like, oh, I don't want this like bloody butterflies and flowers and rainbows. Like that's not really what I'm associating it with. But I think it's cool to make it like less like that.
I think sometimes it comes across as like a little bit condescending.
Yeah.
It's just like some people do, maybe it's nice for some people and they're just like, oh, it's a nice packaging. But some people are just like, this is practical. I don't enjoy it. I just want to get it over and done with. Cheap, quick, done, no frills like you said.
Yeah.
Or something.
There's a spectrum, right? And there's a spectrum from I just want to get my period over with. I don't want to deal with it. I want to take medication. I want to take the pill to get rid of it. I want to have a hysterectomy at 16 years old to get rid of it, whatever it is, right through to I want to be naked, free bleeding, under the full moon, just in touch with myself and mana whenua and just living my best life. And everything on that spectrum is sweet, but it's whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like how your personal identifying with male, with female, the binary, the non-binary. It's the same type of thing. And being shoved into that is frustrating, no matter who you are.
Yeah. I know we probably sort of touched on it before, but for you personally, like how does having a period, not so much for you now, but when you did, how did having a period sort of affect your perception on your own gender? Did it?
For me personally, no. Okay. I know some people, the term like gender dysphoria and things like that, where it's like when you are met with things that remind you of how you externally don't match how you identify internally, sort of thing. When you're met with that sort of thing, there can be quite a lot of anxiety and stress, and some people get really, really depressed about it.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it's quite stressful. And I know for some people, when they get periods, it is something that brings up heaps of gender dysphoria for them. It's horrible for them. But me personally, like I said, just my mindset is just like, it's practical. It's never particularly affected how I feel about my gender. I'm just like, I'm a man who has periods and I hate them, but it doesn't make me feel like less of a man.
That's awesome.
When did you first learn about periods? Do you remember?
Oh, the day I got my period.
Nothing before?
Nothing before. I had no idea. I thought I was dying because, like,
I have heard that so often that I thought I was dying.
Yeah.
How old were you?
Oh, I think I might have been like 10 or 11 or something. And because I've had a lot of health problems throughout my whole life, and I always knew that, like, if I was coughing up blood or blood coming out my nose or something like that, it was just like, okay, I think I'm really sick, I might need to have to go back to the doctor. But for me, I just thought, oh no, something new, I'm gonna have to go to the doctor. And luckily my mum was a teacher at the school, and so I remember being so scared and embarrassed, and I went and I found her and I told her, and she just laughed. She's like, oh yeah, that's your period. I'm like, what?
What is this?
On her and this and that, and it's just so, yeah, I'm not much, I think.
Did you, when you got your first period, did you have feelings inside you that, I mean, you've said that, you know, you don't have any big feelings around getting a period. It's just a biological thing that happens to you, however you across your identity spectrum. It's just shit and it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But had you been having identity thoughts and questions at that young age when you got your period, or did they come later?
Because it's a different journey for everyone. For me particularly, like, as soon as I was old enough to understand the concept, like 5 years old, 6 years old, I was like, oh, I'm a boy. I want to be a boy. I want to play with the boys. I want to play soccer. You know, it's quite a tomboy as well, like you, Tegan. And for me personally, when obviously I learned quickly, I wasn't allowed to say that. You're not supposed to say that. You know, it's girls on this side of the room, boys on that side. So I just sort of, you know, kept that repressed very deeply. So I didn't really properly learn about transgender people and all that until I was about 17 or 18. I remember as soon as I did, it was like, that's what I want. Cool.
Awesome.
But in regards to periods, going through puberty and having those periods and all of that, it really made me feel separate from the boys in the class. It really othered me. It was something that I had to hide and I was ashamed of, and like that mindset that I have now, the very practical one, that came as an adult.
Yeah.
And with a lot of working through things. But before that, it was just something I was so ashamed about, and it just like drove home the fact that, like, no, you don't belong with the boys, because that's how I was kind of treated.
It was that difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the definer, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not talked about. It's not talked about. It's kind of a, you know.
Yeah. Hey, HEH.
I'm so sorry, actually underestimated traffic today.
Okay, so we've had someone just come through the door running a little bit late. Traffic in Tamaki Makaurau is awful. I get it. It's all good. So we've got Aych McArdle, and I just want you to just introduce yourself and who you are, where you're from, what you're about. Go for it.
Kia ora everyone, my name is Aych McArdle and I am a huge fan of the development that's going on in Tamaki Makaurau right now, although I need to add a bit more time to my travel arrangements, but yes to the future of cycle lanes in the city. My name is Aych, I use they, them pronouns. Like many people, I wear many hats in my community. I'm a human rights activist, and I do work across the HIV sector, the youth development sector, suicide prevention. One of the hats I wear is as the co-chairperson of Outline, a phone counselling service for our rainbow communities, and I'm also the human rights researcher at the Intersex Trust of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Amazing. I'll just get you to come a little bit closer.
Okay.
Groovy. So we've just been talking about all sorts with Lee here, but I thought ask some of the same questions. How does having a period affect the perception of your gender, your experience? And go for it. Run it straight. That's what we're here.
Trauma.
We're going straight for the hard one, eh?
I just feel like I can be living my life doing a very non-gendered activity, like going to the supermarket. Like, we all need to eat. Go to the supermarket, get my bits and pieces. I head up the aisle. There's other bits and pieces I need to get: shampoo, deodorant, toothbrushes. That's all ka pai. And then I get to a section that says feminine hygiene.
Bum, bum.
Like, okay, I don't identify as particularly feminine, but also to say feminine hygiene
Also,
as
do-
if like
do you
masculine people aren't hygienic.
Yeah,
and
it just
feminine
makes it
people
sound
need
so
more.
gross.
Do you identify as hygiene? Like,
Yeah, feminine hygiene. It's just this crushing moment of saying, I need to buy some stuff from the supermarket for my body, just like I bought some vegetables and a toothbrush. But there's this thing that's just a functional development in our society that we can now buy our period products from the supermarket. We're not having to make them ourselves. It's just this gutting moment because it's the way that the period industry has grown and developed is in this highly gendered way. And for myself, living in my body, not in a highly gendered way, it is just traumatic. And also everything to do with periods that we sometimes need a bit of help for, whether it's checking in with the doctor or maybe going to see a specialist if it's a gyno or getting the old smears from time to time, and any extra help we might need in managing our periods is so gendered. And then that creates so much trauma when that doesn't align with how you understand your body.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a question for both of you, and I thought of it because, H, obviously you were talking about how you're walking down an aisle and there's feminine hygiene and it's so associated with that gender. So what can we do? And I want to speak on behalf of sort of anyone who's a bit more ignorant, I suppose, because I've never had that identity crisis. Like I've never had that. I've just been like, feminine hygiene. Oh yeah, I'm a female. Mean, you know, and it's been that simple for me. But what can we do to better sort of appropriate the language around periods and all that kind of stuff that is a lot more inclusive?
One thing that I've loved that the Period Place have done has said things like period products for people who get periods. That's awesome.
That's it.
And so supermarkets and places that sell them start to use that language too, and social service agencies that might say also use that if they could replicate that language when they're talking about things like period poverty. But then imagine if all our doctors and health providers who kind of work in the period industry started reflecting that. That would be awesome.
We've had conversations with nurses, with emergency staff, with GPs, and they've really felt like holding on to the term menstruation because for them they're like, this is it's not a word that it's not a euphemism, which holds a lot of stigma. It is the word to describe the function,
Very
menstruation, very medical. That's what it does, But what we've said to them is, but periods doesn't hold stigma. The word, it's not Aunt Flo. It's not the communists are in town, which BT Dubs is my fave. But it doesn't hold any negativity. It's a neutral term that can actually be used in a really positive light when you think about, you know, the impacts of gender coming into the conversation. But if you just say periods, then younger people, kids want to come into the conversation because the term menstruation can be scary to young kids.
And it's a bit clinical, so it's a bit pathologizing as well.
It
they're
is.
menstruating or in their menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
Another top tip, when I'm thinking about eating out or going to cafes and restaurants, making sure that all bathrooms have bins to deal with period products. So even if someone, say, is transitioning and they're passing as a dude and they're like feeling comfortable or just feeling comfortable enough to use the men's bathrooms, but if there's not a bin to dispose of the bits and pieces that they may need to dispose of, that's really stink. Also, by having those bins, it kind of upskills everyone else who might be in that bathroom.
Yeah.
So my advice, if you work in a cafe, if you work in a restaurant, if you work in an office, wherever your place of work is, your little piece of advocacy could be to have that chat with your boss to say, hey, we need to have bins in our male bathroom.
You know, schools around Aotearoa have that problem, and this is one of the things we've been talking to the government about. So the school rollout that they're doing, when we went down and met Our Lady of Grace Jacinda and her team.
Queen Jacinda.
She, one of the things that we talked about was, and I'm not saying we as in only the period place, I'm saying we for all the period advocates who are around the table, was saying was that it's really important that every cubicle is going to have bins because at the moment schools around the country don't. So if you opt in to this program and you've only got one sanitary bin in your bathroom, because your school can't afford to have it paid for, can't afford to have it picked up, you know, what are the issues and what are the impacts? So that's something that at a government level we are having conversations about.
Isn't that so weird? That just seems like something that just should be so logical and just so normal.
A, B and C.
But it's 2020 and we're still talking about it. Ugh, it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, like, would you have any advice for anyone who is identifying as non-binary or, you know, not necessarily identifying with the gender they were assigned with at birth? What kind of advice you would give them in order to be more comfortable with things like a period? You know, if it's in the event that you're still having it?
I reckon for me personally, the advice that I do generally give with people who experience gender dysphoria or the things, you know, is just like, just try to take a step back and see it as a practical thing. Like I said before about how just like, this is a meat sack I'm driving to get to my day. I love that. It's just like, just distance yourself a little bit from it and be like, this isn't everything that you are. I know, because it's like you get told that a lot. It's just like, oh no, you know, there's this girl and this boy and it's what your body is, and it's just like you just gotta just slowly unlearn that over time kind of thing. And yeah, and especially what you guys were saying before about like the gender neutral bathrooms, like I wish I had your bravery because like I still use the women's bathrooms because I always think like if I'm gonna have someone get aggressive at me about it, because you know that can happen, I'd rather it be a woman. And it's because like I was in the closet for 6 years, and it's like gender neutral bathrooms I think is one of the biggest things you can do to help, because it's just like it's a safe place. You can close the door, you can lock the door, you can deal with whatever you need to deal with, and it's just you in the bathroom, you know, like. So I think that's a huge thing, to like make that more readily available, those sort of safe places you can go to and just deal with it on your own.
H, we asked this to Lee before, but I'm keen to know, when did you first hear about periods and what was your first experience?
Oh, so I'm 32 and I went to school here in Tāmaki Makaurau. So we had what my friend called the yucky talk at school.
The yucky talk.
Yeah, so I didn't know what the yucky talk was, but I just knew that our parents had to give us permission to go to the yucky talk. I think we were about 8 years old or 7 years old.
Wow.
And it was boys went to one room, girls went to another.
And the boys weren't told about it? They were just allowed to go and kick a soccer ball around?
No idea what the boys learned about. But we just learned about these things called fallopian tubes and eggs moving around, and we got shown these pads, and I just remember that 8 years old, the talk, and I just remember coming out of it being so disoriented. I was like, hold on. Nobody even told me this was going to happen, because we didn't have a culture. I mean, my mum's pretty chill. Like, she worked at family planning for a while, so but even back then, it was still like these conversations were so awkward, and they weren't conversations we had in our home. Even though she's a super chill person, maybe she was just like, oh, yep, that's right, better have that talk soon. But the school was like, no, 8 years old, you're going to have this chat. And I just remember feeling so overwhelmed. And so they were saying this is something that's going to happen every month. You're going to have to manage it. It's going to be painful. And if you get pregnant, that's very bad, and like just all of this kind of like
so
chat.
taboo,
And it was
right?
but I remember, learning about periods was traumatic.
For both of you, what do you feel are the biggest issues facing trans and non-binary people when it comes to getting their period?
Bum, 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 bum.
I think one of the biggest things is, like we were talking before, about like a safe space and a place. And it's just like, you know, you said the thing of how like when you walk out the door, it's just like you're leaving that space, and it does just kind of feel like it's an island. And it's like you have to find islands, and sometimes those islands are people, or they're gender neutral bathrooms or things like that. And it's just having lack of access to spaces where you can feel comfortable. You know, you can let your guard down, lay your armor down, because it does feel like that if you're transgender and you've got all these things to think about, like the societal, the practical, the body things. And it's like you have to just armor up and deal with all of these things and step out the door. And as soon as you do, it's draining. It's your battery starts running low, and you just need to get to that island where then you can relax and recharge. And like I said, sometimes that island is a person who understands, or it's a place where you can feel comfortable to talk about it, or it's a gender neutral bathroom where you can deal with practical things. It's like we need more islands of safe places where we don't feel drained, where we can recharge. Because like at the moment at my work, there are no gender neutral bathrooms. Like I said, I just have to use the woman's one, and luckily I don't have to deal with periods, because that would be just an extra thing on top of everything. But it's just like, it's kind of annoying, it's kind of draining. I get weird looks in the bathroom, and they see me in my work outfit, you know, I'm wearing it right now because I came straight from there, and it's like I don't have that at my work. And it does, every day I go into work, I have to deal with that. And it's like, sometimes I'm just like, I'm not in the mood for it. I'll just wait till I get home, because I don't have that island at work, you know? And, so I think just having spaces, and the more that you educate people, the more that people know and understand and change things like the Period Place is doing, the more islands we have, the more we can recharge and feel okay and feel safe.
So we need to make more islands.
Yeah.
I would totally agree. And so many of those islands have been made by us, by trans, gender diverse people.
Yeah.
So cis people need to
We need to make the island.
step
We need to step up.
Yeah, so holler to the Period Place and all the awesome mahi you're doing, because you are showing cis people how to step up, and because you guys have access to spaces that us as individuals might not have access to. So when you're doing that advocacy at government, when you're talking with those doctors and those social workers, and just your everyday cis person can do stuff like, I would challenge anyone listening to this, if they are in a workplace or maybe they go to a community centre regularly or their library, are there sanitary bins in the men's loos, and are there gender neutral bathrooms in that space?
Yeah, yeah.
Because
And
it's
that's the way
no
that-
big deal.
That's the way cis people can step up. That's the challenge today. Help create more islands so we can live long and prosper.
And I think as well, speaking as a man, I think cis men as well need to get a bit involved, because
Preach.
I think
Preach.
because
They're
it's
the
like,
impenetrable fortress, right?
because that's the thing, like, even though I don't have periods anymore, like, I will still carry pads on me at all times in case one of my friends get it. I still have them at home. If I run low, I buy some more. And it's just like, because it's just being aware of that can help create islands for people. It's just like, if
How many times have you been out and it's 2:00 in the morning and you stumble into the bathroom and you hear someone going, help, help, do you have a spare tampon or a spare pad? And there's
All the
hands
time.
going out under the cubicles,
Yeah,
and you're like,
yeah.
wait, my bag's back on the dance floor, but I'll go get it for you.
Yeah, and it's just like, I think men sometimes they can feel a bit daunted by like, oh no, this isn't my conversation, and like dads, brothers, teachers, workmates, managers, things like this. They're just, oh no, it's not about me. It's not my topic. I can't. And it's just like, no, actually, please do get involved.
That's
And I
one
think
thing that we're
removing
really,
the stigma.
really pushing for at the Period Place is education for everybody.
Awesome. Hey, well, thank you so much, Aych and Lee, for coming in and talking about this. And
Ka pai.
Yeah,
Thank you.
tino pai. I just am so I just feel like I've learned so much, and I think I'm woke, and I'm so not, and it's just such a cool conversation to have, because like you say, we do need to create more islands of safety for non-binary people who aren't identifying with these what's the word, like norms, even though I hate that word because nothing is normal.
Stereotypes.
Like, okay, excuse my language, but who the fuck decided that this and that is normal, right? This is a real important conversation to have, and I think this will be a really cool space for anyone who is struggling with their identities and stuff like that, for them to know that periods are just logical, normal things
For people.
not associated with gender.
Yes! Thanks so much for having us on. We love the Period Place.
Okay, that was freaking amazing. And I want to say it was amazing, Lee and Aych telling their stories, because it's not a story I've heard before. And I know I'm speaking for a lot of people, and I said it a lot when I was talking to them, like, I'm that ignorant person. I'm the one who doesn't know, but willing to learn.
Yeah.
But I just hope
I feel
that-
like we need to look up the definition of ignorant, because to me, when I hear that word, I'm like, no, like ignorant to me is bad. Like, say you're the person in the room who doesn't know but is here to learn. Like, that's so much more positive.
But also, let's normalize being ignorant and just going, yeah, I'm ignorant. I don't know.
Yeah.
So tell me about it and listen. Remember to listen to
Yes.
people's story. And I think that's one of those things. But Lee and Aych, and I know there's people like me. There was one time I accidentally said to Aych, I called her.
Yep.
She, and I was like, oh my God. But there's no shame in being
No.
like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. You're they.
Yeah.
My bad. And they'll be like, all good. It's sweet as.
Just pick it up and move on, and acknowledge it. Like, and that's the thing, we're all learning. And that's why I'm such a big fan, particularly of Aych and everything that they do in this space, because there's no judgment, there's no blame, it's just, hey, this is how we get to talk about each other now. We get to talk about ourselves through the way we see ourselves, rather than pigeonholed in this binary.
Yeah.
We get to talk about our experiences with periods or with not, or what it's like going through the health system when you feel like you're not fitting in. And the more we talk about it, the more opportunities we have to to change things to be
100%.
more inclusive, to be a society where everybody feels like they are being represented and they are being heard.
Yeah, break down societal norms. But so that wraps up our periods and gender episode, and what an episode it was. Next week, we will be talking to Sarah Widowson, who is a dietitian and women's health expert.
I am looking forward to this one.
This is definitely going to be one where, once again, I'm learning while I'm talking about it.
I feel like this is every episode.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about periods and nutrition because there's actually so much we need to learn about our bodies and what we're putting into our bodies. And I feel like we don't actually learn this stuff until it's like we're old.
Yeah.
And when I say old, I mean like when you're an adult and you're living on your own.
If you're learning this stuff in your 20s, that's still a possibility of 10 years of having your period and not understanding that there is a link between what you eat and what you drink during the time leading up to menstruation, while you've got your period, and then after as well. I mean, there's really about 3 weeks out of the month if you have a typical period that stuff's going on inside you. And so to be able to do something and learn something from Sarah, to be able to do something during that time, to have maybe a little bit of power put back in your hands.
Exactly.
Even if it's just power in your head. Let's get into it. I'm pumped. Let's get her in here.
But thank you so much again. And if you are listening, make sure you tag us. If you've got any feedback for us, where do we reach you?
At The Period Place on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Facebook, on your mum's back. Nah, jokes.
Let us know if you learnt something, or if you're like, hey, you're a ball bag. You can say that too. That's fine. It's totally fine.
Every piece of feedback we want. We're, like we've said so many times, we're all in this journey together. We all want to learn. And so jump online if you want to send us an email, hello@theperiodplace.com.
Easy.
See you next week.
And next week, we got Sarah Widowson.
Yeah, you go.
Laters!
The Period Place podcast.
Thanks to our mates at Ubicotex.
Find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at The Period Place. Hosted by Danica Revel and Tegan Yarworth. Special aroha to Sarah Mickelson. Produced by Carl Thompson and project managed by Heidi Thompson, both from Blue and Ginge Creative.